Where'd you get this?
On the shelf.
If it's in a word or it's in a look, you can't get rid of the Babadook.
So the Babadook finally got a wide release. Even though it had a minuscule opening in the US, it's made enough noise that I thought I should give it a look. I wish I didn't though, because unfortunately this film left no impact on me whatsoever. I feel as though I should be giving a bit more leeway to this film than other horror films due to the limitations that it had, but I don't think that a low budget is a good enough excuse for some of the mistakes that this movie made. You don't need millions to make a good film, but in this case I don't think it would have made too much of a difference. On that note, I hope you stomach this schmuck as I leave you awestruck with my stuck-up look at the Babadook. Ugh, fuck. The story's focus is more of a psychological/emotional horror than anything. It tackles a human's fears from more of an emotional perspective, which would really be the thing that we fear the most. What happens to those closest to us? The thought of our loved ones in danger seems far more frightening than the monster under our bed. The plot follows Amelia and her struggles with her very troubled son Samuel. See, Samuel is the kind of kid with a very active imagination. He carries homemade weaponry, acts out magic tricks, and talks about monsters. His mother finds his very unabashed thoughts very concerning though, due to how close to reality they appear to be. The undercurrent to all of this is the fact that Samuel's father died in a car accident during Amelia's pregnancy, leaving a paternalistic void in Samuel's life. Amelia is plagued by this death, but there are worse things to come her way, when one bedtime story leads the curse of the Babadook into their lives. That's the entire plot summary. I've given it a chance by trying to make it sound interesting, but honestly, I didn't like it. Whilst watching this, I kept asking myself, what's the point? What I mean by this is that the two plots of this movie try to connect with one another, and at the end, they do kind of, sort of, not really. But watching the entire film, there seems to be no purpose to anything. I've thought about this since I saw it, and I still don't understand the point of this film. It needed to convey importance or precedence to either its drama or its horror. If it wanted to be a straight up horror film, go for it. If it wanted to concentrate mainly on the characters, by all means. Yet it felt like the movie struggled with planting its feet and making a solid decision on whether to go one way or the other. The result was that it goes straight down the middle and it doesn't particularly exceed at one or the other. The soul of the Babadook is that it wants you to feel empathy for these characters, not necessarily because of the horror that they're going through, but because of the trauma that they've been through. Yet something was missing from the dramatic element. It felt muted and it wasn't conveyed very well. And then you have to take into consideration the fact that this movie is less than 90 minutes long, and it didn't have too long to amplify its horror elements. A great filmmaker could possibly do both well, but a debut director doing it in less than an hour and a half, it seems unlikely. The outcome was a film that wanted to infuse its horror with its drama, but sadly by the end, I was uninterested in either. The director was Jennifer Kent, and this was her debut picture based off a short film she made previously, Monster. Her film school consisted of her writing to Lars von Trier saying, "Hey, can I watch you direct a film?" To which he said, "Sure." And I like that. It's good to see people having a unique way of getting into the industry. It shows anyone can do it. Not bad, Jennifer. Not bad. And it seems to have worked because she can put a film together. Individual scenes are directed competently, and there's some nice composition here and there. I mean, there are still some rookie mistakes. If you do decide to watch this film, look out for the scene where the girl falls and just think of it logistically. Like, how the fuck would that actually happen? And Ken also uses the dynamic range technique with the sound a bit too often. You don't know what that is? It's when the sound in the film does this. But in general, the sound design was actually rather good. I mean, it better be. You make a horror film and your sound design isn't good, guess what? Your horror fails. The Babadook's sound design was clearly well thought out and it did add to the atmosphere. If there's one positive thing about the film that I can say, it's that its art department was good. I only found out after I watched the film that there was a Kickstarter event for it, in which all of the funds went directly to the art department. It shows because that is the highlight of the film. The Babadook itself is a well-designed monster that can be genuinely unsettling. One of the ways that Kent did this was through in-camera effects. All of the effects were done without the help of CGI, and it gave the monster an unnatural presence. The pop-up book was wonderfully crafted too. The look of the film was initially one of the things that attracted me to it. It had a very dark, Victorian, gothic sort of Tim Burton-esque design. I appreciate the thought and ambition that went into some of the design when horror has become so generic nowadays. It's just a shame that the rest of the movie felt very generic. I think if they'd have just kickstarted the book, that would have been a more interesting project. The horror side of this film was the better aspect, even if it wasn't all that great. But let's say for argument's sake that they did flesh it out more. Even if that was the case, I still don't think I liked this film because of its characters. Some of this acting was absolutely terrible. You might say, it's low budget, give it a break. No. It still had millions to work with, and these were pretty basic lines and actions to nail. But some of it was embarrassing. The lead actress did a decent job, but her direction seemed off. In every scene, it seemed as though the character was aware that she was in a horror film. She'd be so cautious and hesitant about every insignificant thing that was occurring. But the cream of the crop was the kid who played Samuel. This little prick. I know he's just a child, he might grow up to be amazing, but he was just fucking shite. These couldn't have been the best takes. He'd be in perilous danger and you'd see him clearly smiling. It's not even secretive, he's fucking smiling. But none of the characters seemed to have that much depth to them anyway. It felt like it was just another standard horror film. Basically, here's my take on the Babadook. The trailer interested me a bit, but not enough to rush out and see it. But then I started seeing the reviews. On Metacritic, it was rated really highly. and there were a number of reviewers I'd seen or heard that were obsessed with the film. Christ, the director of The Exorcist said that this was the scariest thing he'd ever seen. There had to have been something I just wasn't getting. Credit where credit is due. The movie does avoid many horror cliches in the way that it delivers its horror. It doesn't have jump scares, it tries to build an atmosphere. That's good. But it just doesn't do it successfully. And I feel like the main reason that people are saying that they like this film is because they feel as though they are supposed to like it. It tries a different take on a stagnant formula, but when you sit down and analyse it, it really isn't all that different. A kid with strange foreshadowing abilities? Check. Our main character with a traumatic past that they need to overcome? Got that. Creepy carnival music playing at some point? Of course. A goofy ending? Sure. Yeah, there's another thing that I forgot to mention. If you like this film, that's fine. If you think it's different and unique, great. I'll never call someone's opinion wrong. But for me, I struggle really hard to find someone that thinks all of those things and still like the ending to this film. It's downright silly. Yet, the minor tweaks that the film did do with the horror genre stopped me from saying that I hate it. I didn't really care about the characters, and that was arguably the most important aspect of the entire movie. But the film did try, and from a horror perspective, it's at least a step in the right direction. Again, I didn't hate the movie, but I don't think I'll have much reason to watch it again. The Babadook is a 5 out of 10.